Today I want to talk about the battle that's around belonging to Jesus. I think there's a battle to belong to Jesus. How many of you guys know that belonging is a core human need? We need to belong, right? It's even if you're an introvert, right? You still need your people. Even if you can do fine alone, you still need somebody that you feel like knows you and is in your corner. That is a human need to belong. We long to belong. And we're supposed to experience that in our church. We're supposed to experience that in our family. We're supposed to experience that here. But it's tough sometimes because as much as we want to belong, we know that belonging also is risky. Because if I let you know who I am, right, then there's a chance you might not accept me, right? If I kind of pull back my guard a little bit and let you in, you might reject me. How many of you guys remember when you were maybe in middle school and you had that first crush on that girl or guy, and you didn't want to tell anyone, and you finally told your best friend, and they like laughed at you and made fun of you, and before you know it, it was all over the school, and then you were like trying to deny it, and like, no, I don't like her, who gave you that idea, all that stuff, and why is that so tough? Because, right, we're now letting you in. We're letting you know me a little bit more. And the more you know me, you might use that against me, right? So there's this tension of wanting to be known and yet also at the same time fearing that rejection. We want to be in a group of people that really know us. Even on this video we just watched with Brian and Chris, I'm watching these two best friends and they're celebrating Brian's engagement. We're all so amazed that somebody finally said yes to Brian. But I'm watching this, and I'm just like, gosh, I'm getting so emotional. I was at the party last night and saw the ring today, and I got all choked up. And because I've known Brian since he was a little kid, and I've watched Chris and Brian's friendship, and now I'm in that friendship with them, and we're just like, oh my gosh, we're so happy, so joyful to be known, right? To be known and to be loved. Last week, we talked about how Jesus seems to know our deepest needs and to offer fulfillment. We talked about how you're hungry, you're thirsty, you're tired, you're weary. And you might go to a lot of different places, but there's only one that will actually satisfy you, and his name is Jesus. He's the one that can give you true rest for your weary soul. He can give you true bread for your hungry heart. Today I want to talk about that Jesus actually is the source of where our restlessness and our longing for belonging is truly met. It's in John. I want to look at this passage, John chapter 10. And Jesus says this, he says, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. My sheep, it says in verse 27 of that passage, my sheep listen to my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. Man, to be known, to truly be known by Jesus. We use that so often, I think, as a Christian, culture. We kind of throw that term around or that concept around. Hey, do you know Jesus? Do you know the Lord? We use that kind of phrase. But that is a loaded phrase. Do you really know the Lord? Do you really know the shepherd? And I think sometimes we might have layers of knowing him. I think we'll never get to the bottom of it. That we could pursue him our whole life and never get to the point where I'm like, yeah, I know all there is to know about him, If I can't do that with my own wife, how much less could I do that with the Lord, right? But look what he goes on and he says, my sheep, in verse 27, they listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me. I give them eternal life and they will never perish. No one can snatch them out away from me. I am known. This is a critical concept. Even in you could call this psychology, even when it comes to this idea of relational attachment. There's something that's so critical for your flourishing, and that's that you have a secure attachment to your to your loved ones, especially when you're a kid, right? That you live in a family where you know mom and dad love me, that they're not going anywhere, that they do what they say and they say what they do, right? They're somebody you can count on. And if you don't have that growing up, early in your earliest, developmental stages, it can affect you for the rest of your life. It's as if the father says, listen, I need my kids to know I'm there for them. I'm gonna send my son. He's gonna incarnate. He's gonna put on flesh. He's gonna come into the world, and he's gonna develop an intimate relationship with them in a way that's gonna blow their minds. The kind of relationship that we have together in the Trinity, between the Father and the Son and the Spirit, he's gonna establish with the children, with those who will come to Christ. I am known. I am known. As I said a minute ago, the problem, though, with being known is you might be rejected, right? If you get to know me, you might not like me, right? That's why when we first go to a new job or a new town or even a new church, we're trying to find out, well, who's safe in the room, right? Or who are my people? If I crack a joke, are they going to laugh at my joke? Or are they going to be like, oh, that was weird, Are they going to get your movie references, Some of us Gen Xers in here, can I just go on a little rabbit trail about Gen X for just a second? We are so forgotten. Can I just say that? Like the millennials are just sucking up all the oxygen in the room. They really are, right? And then behind them, the Gen Z, I don't even know what their issue is. And the baby boomers are so huge. It's like this poor Gen X generation. Okay, any Gen Xers in here, it's like, come on, can we just get a little love here, Thank you. And by the way, Steve Jobs and Michael Jordan, these are I'm going on a rabbit trail, was not planned. But guys, you have a computer and a phone because of Gen X. Can I get an amen? Okay, right? And we know how to play basketball because of Michael Jordan. I'm going to keep going for a second. Okay? We need some love. Okay, so I said that. What did I say that for? Because all the Gen Xers in the room are like, yes, thank you. You and I, we talk the same language, right? And that's how you know your people. And the boomers are like, I don't know what his problem is. They're just so insecure, those Gen X people. All right, I don't know. But see, if I'm known, now I can either be accepted or I can be rejected. And here's what we find in the Good Shepherd. Not only do I know everything about you, I love you. Look what he says in John chapter 15. He says, as the Father has loved me, so have I, let's all read it, love you. I know you fully and I love you completely. Let me say that again. I know you fully and I love you completely. You are safe in this relationship. That's powerful. When Jesus uses this image of I'm the good shepherd, it isn't just out of thin air. In fact, this image of the good shepherd is a deep biblical motif. And there's a theme and there's a passage that I think Jesus is directly pulling from that's so powerful. And it's in the book of Ezekiel. Probably not a book you read often, but this prophet Ezekiel is writing well after the life of David. He's writing just before the Babylonian captivity, near the end of the time where Israel was free. And Ezekiel is, on behalf of Yahweh, he's correcting the leadership of Israel. He's got something to say to the leaders of Israel. And in chapter 34, here's what he says to the leaders of Israel. He says this, you have not taken care of the weak. You have not tended the sick or bound up the injured. You have not gone looking for those who've wandered away and are lost. Instead, you've ruled them with harshness and cruelty. Look at verse 5, it says, so my sheep have been scattered without a shepherd. And notice this, they are easy prey for any wild animal. So Yahweh, he loves Israel, right? They're his firstborn son. They're his chosen people. And he's installed leadership, spiritual leadership over Israel. And they were supposed to care for his people, right? And shepherd his people. But instead, Israel's leadership became selfish. Instead of protecting the sheep, they used the sheep. Instead of laying their lives down for the sheep, they ate the sheep. It was the opposite of what they should be doing. And Yahweh is holding them to account. But I want to think about the sheep for a second. scattered, isolated, injured, wandering, lost. You know, life has a way of doing that to us, doesn't it? Have you ever felt lost? You ever felt like, whew, what is going on right now? You ever felt like life is just like, somebody threw a rock into this beautiful picture that you were trying to build and it's just shattered now? And you start to wonder, like, where is my shepherd? I feel like I'm all alone. I feel like I'm easy prey. I feel like I'm all alone and I don't know which way is up and I feel so dark. And maybe in those moments, like, you know, you're trying to make heads of tails of all this, and you're just starting to, honestly, if I'm being honest, you're starting to really wonder, like, is all this even true? Like, I had great experiences with God in church. Like, I heard that sermon, I listened to that worship, I felt something, I felt like it was true, and I tried to make that decision to follow Jesus, but now, like, things are so different now. It is so dark. It is so scary. I don't even know where the good shepherd is. I don't feel like maybe I really do belong anymore. I thought I belonged, but now my circumstances are telling me otherwise. And this is what I'm talking about. This is the battle to believe that you belong. There's a battle to believe that you belong, because sometimes the circumstances are going to tell you you don't belong. You are rejected. God is and he's got plenty of reasons to. If you knew my story, if I knew your story, there's plenty of reasons for God to reject us, right? Is anybody else in here perfect? No. Right? And maybe you were rejected or hurt by somebody who said they would never leave you, and they did. And now you're saying, that's just what happened to me with God. I thought I was secure in this, and now I don't know because he's not answering my prayers. You know, last summer was one of those dark spots for me. Not to get into the whole story, but there was a vacation trip that Michelle and I planned right before her cancer surgery last summer. And try to go on a vacation when you know you have a surgery and you know your wife's got cancer. Like, that is not a restful vacation. And I remember we were down in Southern California. We were actually down near San Diego at Ocean Beach. And we rented this Airbnb. And we're like, we're going to have at least a little bit of fun before we go into the surgery. And all we knew at that moment is that the tumor was cancerous. And so I remember every morning I would go onto that Ocean Beach and I would pray over those cliffs and I would cry out to God. I probably put 5 miles every morning on my shoes as I walked around just praying. I got up way before everybody else, and I was so stressed out. And I remember thinking, man, God, where are you? And then at night, we would get ready for bed, and she would just tell me about what she was feeling, you know, that she felt like it was getting worse. And like, oh my gosh, I'm like, what are we doing here? We should be in an emergency surgery. This, you know, and so helpless as a husband, like, I want to take this out of her, you know? There's nothing I could do, right? And you just have those moments where you're just like, God, where are you? In those dark moments, when we are battling to believe that we still belong, that is when temptation is going to get so loud for us. Because you're going to want comfort. It's natural. You're going to want some safety valve, some release valve. And there's going to be so many things offering you a little out, right? Like, hey, try this, take this, drink this, right? Whatever your poison is, right? Because I hate what I'm feeling. I need to escape. This is my escape. And that is the trap of the enemy, because now he's going to offer you a temporary relief for something that's not going to go away, but it's just going to compound your problems and give you more trouble tomorrow. Are you hearing me this morning? That is exactly what the enemy does. You can't trust God. You probably don't belong. You probably got that twisted. Maybe he isn't even real, so you better take care of yourself. So, hey, here you go. Whatever it is for you, when you're hurting, when your heart's broken, when it seems like the shepherd's wandered away or you've wandered away from him or whatever's happened, that is the moment you are so vulnerable for attack from the enemy. That's when you need to lean into community, not away. See, but we're tempted to isolate because I don't want to be around people, right? And when we need people the most, we withdraw the most frequently. Like that is the exact opposite thing to do. man, I remember being there. And I had my brothers around me. I had my sisters. I had members of this church caring for me. But there's a battle to believe that you belong. Do I belong? That is a core question that the enemy is going to be asking. Trying to put that in your head. Look at what the prophet goes on to say, though, about what Yahweh is going to do. So he's upset with the leaders. He's upset with them. They're not caring for the sheep. They're not taking care of those who've wandered off. So look what, it's so powerful, you guys. It's just so powerful because everything that these false shepherds didn't do, Jesus comes and does. He goes looking for those sheep. Come on, somebody. He goes binding up the injured. He goes finding the wounded. He goes into the highways and the byways. He goes, look, I don't care how far you've come. I still love you. You're still known. You're still mine. I'm still chasing. Anybody been chased down by the good shepherd in this room? Anybody need to be chased down by the good shepherd in this room? Maybe right now you're like, I need the good shepherd to come chasing me. Look what the prophet says in verse 11. So this is what the sovereign Lord says. I myself will search and find my sheep. I'm going to do it. I'm going to roll up my sleeves. The strong arm of Yahweh is going to be revealed according to Isaiah. I'm going to come chasing my sheep. Verse 12, look what he says, I will be a shepherd looking for his scattered flock. I will find my sheep and I will rescue them from all the places where they were scattered on that dark and cloudy day. When the diagnosis comes, when your boss tells you you're getting laid off, when you don't know why she said why she broke up with you, or you don't know if you're going to get that job or you're going to get that career or whatever, and everything seems dark and cloudy and you're just wandered away, the text says that Yahweh is going to come chasing for his sheep who get scattered on that dark and cloudy day. And notice what it says in the end of this passage. I will set over them one shepherd, my servant David. Now, I already told you this is written way after David was alive. He isn't talking about King David. He's talking about the son of David. He's talking about the Messiah, the one who would come, one descendant of David, the perfect king. He's talking about the Messiah. This is so amazing, you guys. I will set him over them, one shepherd, my servant David, and he will feed them, and he will be a shepherd to them. And I, the Lord, will be their God, and my servant David will be a prince among my people. I, the Lord, have, let's all say it, spoken. I have spoken. But you know, this is describing the Hesed love of God, the covenant faithfulness of God. Yeah, my leaders didn't do the job right. My leaders didn't protect the flock, but that isn't going to be the end of the story. I'm going to come. I'm going to guarantee that they're going to be shepherded. I'm going to do what they didn't do. I'm going to do what no one could do. But what the prophet didn't realize is what it would cost God to be our shepherd and our rescuer. There's no mention in this text of the shepherd laying down his life for the sheep, because it wasn't revealed to the ancient prophets that that's what the Messiah would have to do to be this Messiah for us, to be this rescuer for us, that death itself would have to be defeated by the Messiah himself dying our death, taking our sin. There's no Old Testament prophet that would see this that clearly. There were these mentions of a suffering servant. There were these mentions of, but no one understood that God himself would take on flesh, and that God-man would die on a cross so that he could rescue the sheep. Like that was mind-blowing to anyone, friends, and it needs to be mind-blowing to us. Because although our circumstances get dark and it becomes so hopeless at times, what do we see in Jesus? We see a God who took on flesh, who knows exactly how it feels to feel abandoned by the Father. He wasn't abandoned, but he felt it. What are those words out of his mouth on the cross? My God, why have you forsaken me? How many humans have uttered those words or a version of those words? And God's like, I want them to know I know exactly how that actually feels. Even if it isn't fact, it's still how you feel. And to know that God, Jesus in every way has suffered like we have, and yet he didn't sin. He has experienced every human drama and every human problem, every difficulty, and yet he didn't sin. Even on the cross, he doesn't call down the angels and get himself delivered. He's going to trust himself to the Father even though he feels abandoned because he knows the hesed love of my God. He will not abandon me. He will not leave me. I feel he did, but he hasn't. This hesed love, Dave Strider preached on this a few weeks back in the summer series. This is covenant loyalty. There's a story where you see this really mentioned. In fact, it's one of the first mentions of this in the Bible. And it's in the book of Exodus. This is when Moses has already gone through taking the people out of Egypt, and Israel's already like totally betrayed God by building a golden calf. And now it's like, what is going to happen now? We're supposed to stay connected to Yahweh, and now we're already worshiping a false god. And if you don't know the story, you can read that. And so Moses is at his wit's end, and he says, God, I just need to see you. And God says, okay, Moses, if you saw me, you would die. One day, you're going to have a different body that can handle it, but right now, you can't. But I'm going to put you in this cave, and I'm going to put my hand over the mouth. I'm going to walk past it, and you're going to see just what you can tolerate. But what you're going to see is going to blow your mind. Watch what the text says. So Yahweh's passing in front of this cave, and there's this loud voice. I can imagine every hair on your arms would have stood up, right? Like the goosebumps, and you're hearing Yahweh, the Lord, right? Like this. I don't know if it was an angel, like a heralding angel, just like yelling, as the king comes by. But instead of power, instead of like a fear of like the power of God, notice what is said. The God of compassion and mercy. Not the God of thunder and judgment, right? It's the God of compassion and mercy. Like when you really see God and you're expecting to see like inconceivable power that would just fry you, right? Which is true. That's not true. But what you do see is, here's what I want you to see. Here's what I really am. Here's my first attribute. Compassion and mercy. I'm slow to anger. How many of us are glad he's slow to anger? How many of us need to become a little more slow to anger? Different sermon for a different day. Filled with unfailing love. That's hesed. Unfailing love. I'm filled with it. Being filled with unfailing love. And faithfulness. I lavish, here it is again, unfailing love to 1,000 generations. I forgive iniquity, rebellion, and sin. Anybody glad he forgives iniquity, rebellion, and sin? The text ends with this. He says, but I do not excuse the guilty. I do not excuse the guilty. I lay the sins of the parents upon the children and the grandchildren. The entire family is affected, even the children in the third and fourth generations. He's saying, listen, this sin thing is a problem. And when we sin, when we rebel, there are going to be consequences. But what I'm going to do, because I'm a God of mercy and compassion, I'm going to limit the effects of sin. In fact, I'm going to limit those effects. If you give me your life, if I'm able to take this covenant with you and you're able to give, I'm going to limit the effects of sin to just this world. I will not put the eternal consequences of sin on you. I'll put them instead on my son, Jesus. So when we choose to sin, we will have an effect, but it doesn't have to be a devastating, deadly, eternal effect because our Savior came and took our place on the cross. Because he's a God of unfailing love, steadfast love, steadfast love. It's hard to believe that when you're in the middle of the storm. You need to hear that when you're tempted because all of a sudden it seems so dark out and you wonder. That's why coming to church is so important. You need to be reminded of truth because sometimes your circumstances tell you things that aren't true. The enemy using every opportunity he can to tell you a lie. Sometimes you get through a trial and God gives you a moment to see that he's been faithful the whole time. And these are great moments in your Christian life. That happened actually to Michelle and I. So as you guys know our story, this was a tough year. She went through all the treatments, and in the spring started feeling better. And we started doing some marriage counseling, premarital counseling for Jacob and Caitlin. Sorry, guys, back there. And we love them so much. It was so fun to do this premarital counseling. It was the first time we also did it for Luke and Alyssa that we were feeling normal, because everything was so tough. And to take a young couple and prepare them for marriage was, I think, probably better for us than them, because it was just fun to do something together as a couple, and it felt normal because it was hard. Well, at some point, Jacob says, hey, Brad, we'd like you to do our wedding. And I go, oh, that's awesome. And he goes, it's going to be in California. I go, great, awesome, I always just say great, and then I have to ask my boss, is that okay, But she's, of course, like, yes, Then he told me the date, and the date was mid-July. And I said, oh, Jacob, I can come. I wouldn't miss it. I'll come. I don't know if Michelle can come because she's got a surgery, big surgery on July 2nd. And they're saying she'll be, out for weeks. It's a reconstruction of everything that happened last year. And she's like, Brad, I'm going to go. I'm like, okay. But, truly, I don't know. She goes through this surgery. I'll tell you a story another time. God showed up. So we're on the other side of that surgery, and she's going through it. She's my superhero. I mean, really. And she's recovering really well. The doctor's like, wow, this is a miracle. You're like, are you human? Like, she was just really went through the surgery well. I can tell so many people were praying for her. We go to a post-op doctor's appointment, and we get in the car. We have our luggage, and we drove from that appointment to their wedding. We put in the GPS, and we started driving. We had such a great conversation, You know how you have a great conversation, it makes a drive go like 2 minutes? It's a 5-hour drive, it doesn't feel that way. That was how it was. It's like, just me and my wife, driving to go do this wedding, to enjoy this special moment. And I'm just driving, and then as we get into California, the GPS, I'm just doing the directions, and I'm like, man, this wedding seems further south than I thought, I thought it was more north. I didn't remember exactly what they said. So I'm just following the directions. Another half hour goes by, another 45 minutes go by. I'm going, where is this wedding at? Like, where is this thing, I actually looked at the address. You know where this wedding was? In the exact place Michelle and I spent that vacation a year ago. In the exact location. Ocean Beach, the same places where I was crying out to God a year ago, 370 days earlier. And I was like, where are you, God? How's this happening to my wife? What is the future going to hold? And I'm like crying. I'm looking at that coffee shop, and I'm looking at that cliff, and I'm looking at that, and I'm looking, there's where our Airbnb, and they're like, yeah, Brad, our wedding is right here. And I go, you guys, he never left. It seemed so dark, and I was so tempted. God, where are you? He's like, I'm here. I'm here. There's a battle to believe that you belong. And in the middle of that dark time, you are not going to feel like you belong. And sometimes even in our relationships with each other, the enemy's like, don't trust him. Don't trust her. They don't like you. He is a divider. That's what he does from Genesis chapter 3 on. How can I divide people? Did God really say that? Do you guys really need to stay committed? Are you guys really going to keep this marriage? Are you really going to, all of this crap. Can I say that in church? And sometimes we just bite Satan's bait. We take the bait. And then all of a sudden, we're grabbing that substitute, that coping mechanism, that alternative, that idol. Can we just stand together? Guys, I want us to respond to this. What we are doing in our services, church, is we're trying to create space for us to respond. Because you can hear a message that challenges you, because you might be right in the middle of a battle right now, and you are on the edge of just saying, forget this. And the enemy is thinking he's got you. And you come into a service, a sermon about a battle to belong, and that is exactly what you need to hear because you're at that tipping point right now. And I'm just saying, friend, this is a moment for you to lean in and not lean out, to go close and not run away, to let your brothers and sisters pray for you, to carry your corner, to bring you back to Jesus.